So can I tell you about the story of how I started YouTube? Because it's kind of funny. It's not who you would expect to be my inspiration. But I didn't want to be a YouTuber. I didn't even know that YouTube existed until I was like maybe 8. I think that was around the time. So, yeah, I was watching this YouTuber called Austin John Plays. Not sure if you've ever heard of him, but if you have, you'd know that he's like a fun guy. And basically, what ended up happening with that is like I was watching all of his like videos on like Pokemon and stuff. And cause back then, I wanted to be a Pokemon YouTuber, which is really funny. Because I also love Pokemon, but I obviously, because it was like a Switch game and all these different consoles, didn't know how to set up on my computer, so I ended up not doing that. But eventually, I was doing like I was watching like these people, and then for some reason my parents banned me from watching YouTube until I was 13, which is really stupid, but whatever. And then I kept going, and yeah, so what I ended up doing with that is, because they made one fatal mistake, which is they left my phone in my room completely charged with the charger. So what I did is I stayed up till like butts o'clock in the morning watching Grian, which is really weird because there was like this 2-year gap where I just did not watch YouTube at all, but had it in the back of my mind where I was like, oh, I want to do this maybe one day, but I'm not exactly sure how. So I always had it in the back of my mind. Anyway, going back to my story, yeah, there was like a 2-year gap between like when I stopped watching YouTube and when I started again, which is the gap in which I actually started playing Minecraft. Now, back then, I was genuinely awful at Minecraft. Like, all I played was creative, and the builds I made were the most, like, 2012-ass 11-year-old builds you could possibly think of. Like, the equivalent of a slightly modified villager house. Like, it is so stupidly bad. Yeah. I highly, at the point I'm at, I doubt I could build, I doubt I could build what I built back then that badly if I tried. Like, if I genuinely put all of my effort into building something as badly as I did back in, like, 2018 when I first got into Minecraft, I don't think... No, it wasn't even a dirt house, which is the worst part. It was worse than a dirt house. But yeah, anyway. So, after a lot of training, because I got into Minecraft during the period in which I didn't watch YouTube, and didn't know that Minecraft YouTubers existed. So at that point, want to know something else? I snuck on to YouTube to watch Zelda videos. I watched people play Breath of the Wild. And so then, I wanted to become a Zelda YouTuber. So, you see my dilemma here. And, yeah. I wanted to become like a Nintendo YouTuber where I played all the Nintendo games. And then I realized that it existed because I saw this. You wanted to become a Skylander YouTuber. That is interesting. I don't think I've ever heard somebody say that they wanted to become a Skylander YouTuber. That's pretty cool. But yeah. I remember I first watched Grian. I can remember the exact episode that I watched first. It's the one where he built, it was like in Hermitcraft Season 7, and he built his mansion, but like upside down. And that's the first video that I watched, and I was like, I looked at it, I took one look at it. Because I've heard of Grian, I had heard of Grian at that point before, because back then, I was 10, and you wanna know what YouTuber I was watching Minecraft content of? back then, you are gonna cringe when you hear this. This is like the equivalent of Voldemort, but of Minecraft YouTubers. Like, you cringe at the mention of her name. But, has anybody in the chat ever heard of aphmau? I'm ashamed to admit it, but there was a phase in my life where I was an aphmau stan. But I am genuinely I am ashamed of that point in my life. I am like genuinely like ashamed. But oh, it gets even worse when the other two YouTubers that I were watching were Unspeakable and Preston. Like, that just adds on to how bad it is. But so at the end of the day, right, I eventually started this Minecraft server for me and my friends. Yeah, I was like 9. Anyway, so yeah, at a certain point, I was like, I became an aphmau stan, and then after that, okay, now I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna say it. aphmau's content has gone downhill since I was a stan. It has gone downhill. Like, it's gotten even worse than it already was. And in my defense, 2019 and 2020 aphmau was actually half decent. But other than that, 2020, like, I've actually looked on that channel recently. Oh, sweet Jesus, is it painful to look at. But yeah, then after that, after I was like up by like 3 in the morning watching aphmau, then I came across this guy named Green, and it was like a build hack video, and I was like, oh damn, this guy's cool. Like, these are actually cool builds, and yeah, I was seriously watching like borderline Monster School. It was problematic. And I was watching borderline Monster School. It was problematic. Once again, I am so ashamed of that chapter of my life. But yeah, basically what happened with that is that I watched Green's build hack video. Then I watched, because I saw he had a series too. And by that point, I wanted to binge watch something. So I was like, sure, let's give this a shot. It has a high viewer count. Let's, like, why not? Screw it. And then I just decided to watch that Hermitcraft episode. And my legitimate reaction, the cogs grinding in my 9-year-old brain at the time, were like, oh my god, this guy's cool. Like, my gears were grinding so hard that, like, I was like, this guy's cooler than aphmau. This guy's cooler than any YouTuber I've ever watched, including Austin John Plays. Now, at that point in my life, I praised Austin John Plays as a freaking god. I swear. Like, I praised him as a king amongst men. And it was like my ultimate goal to meet him one day. But yeah, what ended up happening with that is that I saw Green and was like, oh, okay, I can get in on this. And then, I kid you not, I spent nothing. I did not do anything for the past 2 weeks other than binge watch every single existing Green Hermitcraft episode. Like, I didn't do my schoolwork, I didn't do my homework, I just watched Hermitcraft to the point where people actually started pointing out in class, like, you've been watching the exact same freaking guy for 24 hours straight. What is your problem? Like, I swear to God, the only other thing that I did other than watch Green was sleep and eat. Even then, at school, when I had lunch, I was watching Green the entire time. Yeah, so let me talk about that now. Because this was at the point in my life where I started, like, the server for me and some of my school friends literally just called The Realm. And it was about 2 years old at the time. We just got through, like, a massive, okay, I'm not gonna say war, because the story of the realm is a completely different thing. But to summarize it quickly, I admin abused, people got mad, got a hacked client, griefed, and then I admin abused even more. They griefed more, and then I banned them. Basically, that's what happened next. So, at the time, I was like, okay, what do I want to do? Because it was a creative mode server. I'm gonna be honest, it was not a survival server. It was creative mode. Everybody wanted it to be survival, but it was creative, which, once again, dark chapter of my life. But basically what happened is that after that, I was like, okay, what do we do about this situation? Because everybody, like, has either left or become inactive. And the people who were active were the griefers. So I was in a state of like, okay, I need to fix spawn, which at the time was called the mainland. So I decided to venture off about 1,000 blocks and just build a new spawn called the new mainland. It wasn't actually spawn though, like, long story short, yada yada. You'll probably see it in an upcoming video. So yeah, I was watching Grian, like, God knows when, but I realized something. He never showed his face. He doesn't talk about himself. He doesn't have any socials other than YouTube where you can actually contact him. And you can contact his business email, but like that's kind of like one way to instantly not get liked by a content creator is just like contact their business email for absolutely no reason. But yeah. So what happened there was I was watching Grid, right? And it was a fun time. It was a fun time in my life. But then I needed some inspiration. And you want to know what inspired me? So Grian did a world tour, right? Grian did a world tour. At a certain point, he did a Hermitcraft tour of like the entire season 7, and I saw something in that world tour that inspired me more than I have ever been inspired by a build before. It was Corrales' city. And it was like my really young brain thought it was like basically impossible to commit to that level of like build. So I said to myself, no matter what I do or where I end up in life, I will be devoting myself to this like insane thing. And one day I will have like not just a build, but a world of my own like Corrales did. And so from then on, I became completely devoted to building, finding all of the build hacks, and like basically memorizing them. And then even at a certain point, inventing some build hacks of my own, like the bunk bed trick that I featured in my video, or at least some people know about. There's also a build hack, I forget where, but I'm surprised not many people do it, but I forget what it is. I just remember knowing that not many people do it and was really surprised that not many people do it, you know? So, yeah, basically, I tried super hard and basically tried to emulate Grian with the end goal of my YouTube career being meeting Grian and joining Hermitcraft. I don't care how many subs I get. That's just my end goal, is Hermitcraft. In fact, me and my friend actually, like, did a campaign on the realm called Hermitcraft or Bust, where we agreed that no matter what we do, because he was already a YouTuber at the time with, like, 20 subs, which at the time, obviously, because I did not know what being a YouTuber was and or meant, I thought that was a lot, so basically, that guy was cool, and yeah, what ended up happening with that is that he agreed to Hermitcraft or Bust, and yeah. Eventually, like, the contract we signed, because we did a whole thing. It was a whole event, and, like, we eventually got rid of the contract. Because he decided to back out just because. He didn't want to go in that direction, but I did. I kept on trucking. And if he didn't want to go in that direction, then so be it. I booted up a creative world. I went absolutely buck wild with my builds from then. From then on, knowing that I was on my own, and the only person that could prove that I'd be worthy of being on Hermitcraft is myself. And basically, what happened with that is it was pretty chill. It was pretty chill. I just did that, and then I saw, because that was back in 2020 when the Dream SMP was a huge thing, I saw Wilbur Soot, who to me at the time was like Grian's personality, but slightly less PG. Which I was like, oh, this guy's also cool too. So I tried to like get a sense of what personality type I wanted to follow as a content creator, and I said to myself, Grian with a small combination of Wilbur Soot, and also at the time, because that's when I first met Vitality. So that general time period. I also got Discord then, and first set up like my first few videos. My first ever video was originally going to be like building a good-looking diamond house, because you see these diamond houses everywhere that are just like absolutely awful, like they look horrible. But I actually came up with a design that looks good for a diamond house. So I was pretty impressed with that, and it was originally going to be my like first video, until the video editing software that I was using to make that video crashed. Like, it crashed, and I lost all of my work. I lost every recording I had, and that was back when I was on like a crappy 10-year-old MacBook, so it makes sense why it did crash. But yeah, that's how I came to be. I just did that. My main goal was Hermitcraft, and I didn't care to what end I had to stop at to get onto that server. I just wanted to so badly. It was like an obsession of mine for the longest time. You can ask anybody who knew me back then, and they say there were two things running through my mind. The YouTube and Hermitcraft. Like, that is it. So yeah, that was a really fun period of my life. That was also when I can say this because it's probably not gonna happen. Like, I can say this. I originally tried to make a server for Vitality, and that was pretty chill. It was pretty fun. It was a fun project, and I got to know Vitality's fan base a lot better. And then I was like, oh man, I really want a fan base like this too one day. That would be really cool. So obviously, you know, what thought ran through my brain was, why not prematurely make a Discord server so that when I am a YouTuber, people join it? So my Discord server was made before I was a YouTuber, which is the funniest part. And yeah, so that was pretty fun. I remember when I first started my YouTube channel, I was at something really like stupid and insignificant. I think I was consistently at 20 subs. I was bragging to my friend that originally had like 20 subs when I was like, I beat you, and it took me like a quarter of the time. Because that was my main accomplishment. I did not know anybody else. Right? And then that is around the time. Well, that general time period was when I met Scav, which basically what ended up happening is I did not know him other than the fact that he was Vitality's Twitch mod. I did not have another thing. I did not know him outside of that. So what happened, right, was that I basically tweeted out, like, hey, who wants to join this SMP? And it was called the Close Together SMP, which was basically like a beta for the One Chunk SMP. Like, in reality, it basically was, except it was much bigger. It was 1,000 by 1,000 instead of one chunk. And then, obviously, because that series isn't still going well, everyone got into an argument and said that it was like weird. Like, everybody was saying that the power was getting a bit too like tipped into my favor, and like weird things were happening. Like, I got pissed off because somebody stole my stuff, and I was like, bro, that's like, you can't do that. Like, this is supposed to be a Hermitcrafts type SMP. And then basically how the depth wars started, except we didn't really knew what we were doing back then. Like, we didn't know each other well enough for it to be like, oh, it's just a friendly prank, you know? It was also with the guy that I was talking about that had like 20 subs. So, yeah, basically, didn't end well. I'm just gonna say it like that. It did not end well. Is there any water in my water bottle left? Please tell me there is, because I'm getting thirsty. Okay, thank God. So, yeah. What happened with that is that it did not end well. It did not end well at all, and me and Scav and, like, the other guy didn't speak for, like, 3 months, I want to ballpark. No, not 3 months. It's less than that. Because the series kept going after Scav left. And I remember building him a memorial. At spawn. And yeah, eventually the other guy lost interest too, and because there was nobody else on the server at that time, because once again, I did not have many connections outside of the guy I was talking about, Scav and Vitality. Even Scav, he just joined just because, and yeah, so I didn't have many connections. Then, in an attempt to try again and make some good content, I started this SMP called the Ability SMP, which, it was fun. It was an interesting concept. It was basically just a normal SMP, except every minute you got a random status effect, and that was all that changed. But then I realized that's more like for a challenge video, and also we had like one big war or battle between me and Scav, just as a joke. Which is why you can see the reference to that one blast furnace from the Ability SMP, which is a reference to my other video where, like, a war got triggered by a blast furnace. But it isn't really a war, because, like, it was just me and him. So, really, you could just say... It was more like a fight. It was more like a small battle. I actually don't know who else was on that SMP. Forget. Footage is definitely deleted by now, I can tell you that. But, so that obviously didn't end well because, I mean, it doesn't even exist anymore, so that's evidence enough, in my opinion. But yeah, after that, that's when I started the Escapades, which was basically me and Scav's, like, effort to, you know, tie ourselves together a little bit more. Because by that point, me and Scav were a little bit weird. Like, it wasn't like a problem or anything. Like, there wasn't any drama between us. It's just tensions were a little bit high. So I remember, I'm pretty sure, like, I asked Scav at a certain point. It was like, hey, you want to be featured in this new series that I'm doing? And it was like, yeah, sure, why not? And that was at the time where we became, like, really good friends. So yeah, long story short, that's kind of my full story. I probably told it really wrong, just because it was such a long time ago that all this stuff happened, and it kind of got deleted from my memory, so yeah.